Our I can statement is n21. I can solve problems with different forms of rational numbers. Take a moment to answer the following question. It says, plot and label the following numbers on the number line. I'm going to demonstrate the first one for you. So we have -3. So I'm just going to look on the number line. Here's -3. So I'm just going to put a dot on it, and I'm going to label it as -3 above. You'll do the same thing with the other 4 numbers. Go ahead and try it now on your own. All right, so the next number is 2.2, so that's 2 2/10, and I counted in between each of the whole numbers. There are 10 little tick marks, so that means that positive 2.2 is going to be 2 little tick marks, 2/10 past positive 2. 1 1/2 is going to be halfway between 1 and 2. That's also equivalent to 1.5, so that's why it would be 1 and then 5/10 past. Oh, and I forgot, I should label those, so 2.2 and 1 1/2. The next one is -0.5. So I'm going to go past 0 in the negative direction to 5 tick marks past. So that's -0.5, which makes sense because 0.5 is 1/2, so it should be halfway between 0 and -1. And then finally we have 1/4. And I know that 1/4 is 0.25, so that's going to be in between 2 and 3/10. And I am going to label that as 1/4. And it's also halfway in between 0 and 1/2, so that lets me know that it's also in the right spot. So this is our answer from number 1, and then we're going to use it to help us with number 2. Write these numbers in order from least to greatest. So I'm just going to start at the most negative end, and I'm going to list those numbers. So -3, -0.5, 1/4, 1 1/2, and 2.2. Now we want to be able to reorder positive and negative fractions and decimals without using a number line, but we can take those same tips and tricks that we just used to apply them to these types of problems. So let's go over the strategies that we used. So the first strategy that I used is I converted fractions to decimals. Okay, so if I have a fraction but I can convert it into a decimal, that helps me to compare numbers. The second strategy that I used is write the numbers in order from the most negative all the way up to the most positive. Finally, we want to memorize the most common types of fractions that we'll see. So some examples of common fractions are 1/2 is equal to 0.5, 1/4 is equal to 0.25, 3/4 is equal to 0.75. And I just want to pause to take a note that one way that you can remember fourths is 1/4 is worth 25 cents, or 0.25. 3/4 is worth 75 cents, or 0.75. So that can help you to remember those decimals. 1/5 is 0.2. Okay, because if we multiplied the top and bottom by 2, we would get 2/10, so 0.2. And with fifths, you could take that 0.2 and multiply it by whatever number's in the numerator to get your new fraction. So 2/5 would be 0.4, 3/5 would be 0.6, and so on. 1/9 is equal to 0.1 repeated, and that's a fun little trick that any number on top of 9 is going to be that number repeated. So 2/9 would be 0.2 repeated, 3/9 would be 0.3 repeated, and so on. 1/3 is 0.3 repeated, and 2/3 is 0.6 repeated. So if you don't already, have these common fractions memorized because it will make this process a lot faster and will help you with lots of other problems down the road. So now we're going to take these steps, the steps that we just listed, converting fractions to decimals, listing from most negative all the way up to most positive, and we're going to use those common fraction memorizations to help us write these numbers in increasing order. So my first step is to take my fractions and to convert them to decimals. Now remember, I know that 1/5 is 0.2, so I'm going to do 0.2 times 3 and get 0.6, and this is going to be negative 0.6, and this is not repeated. 0.6 repeated would be 2/3. Then I'm going to take 9/4. Now, I know that this is an improper fraction, which would be equivalent to 2 1/4, so that tells me it's going to be 2.25, because I have 2 for the whole number part and 0.25 for the 1/4 part. Now that I've got my fractions written as decimals, I'm going to put them in order, and I'm going to start with the very most negative number. So if I look at the two negative numbers I have, 0.6 or 1.9, negative 1.9 is the most negative. Then will come negative 0.6. Then I will have from the positive numbers 0.8, 2.25, and 7.8. Now my last step is to take those two decimals that started out as fractions and rewrite them as their original numbers. So I have negative 1.9, negative 3/5, 0.8, 9/4, and 7.8. If you feel comfortable, you don't have to record this step. You can just go from the first step in red all the way to the second step in green. But it doesn't hurt to list both steps out if that's helpful to you. Try this one on your own. Start up the video when you're ready to check your answer. All right, so I converted 1/2 to 0.5, so that's negative 0.5. 2/5 is 2 times 0.2, which is 0.4. Then I listed them in order, starting with the most negative and ending with the most positive. And I did skip that second step. I went ahead and knew that if negative 0.5 came next, that would be equivalent to negative 1/2, then 0.3. Then I knew that the next thing would be 0.4, which I wrote as 2/5, and then 2.4. All right, you can solve the next 4 problems using your calculator. So you're just going to type in 0.796 plus 4ABC5. And on any problems that don't have nice little terminating decimals, I want you to practice rounding to the nearest hundredth. So that's 2 places after the decimal. So try the next ones on your own. All right, so when I type this into the calculator, I got 1.596. Now, 9 is in the hundredths place, so it's either going to stay the same or it's going to bump up 1. And I look to the number to its right. Since the number is 5 or higher, 6 is higher than 5, that tells me that I need to do plus 1 to the 9. But since it's a 9 plus 1 is 10, so that means my final answer is going to be 1.6. And you can write it as 1.60 if that helps you to remember that you did round to the hundredth place, but in this case it is 1.6. When I type this one into the calculator, I got 3.12. This is already to the hundredth place, so this is going to be my final answer. When I typed this into the calculator, I got 33.1396. I am going to round to the hundredths place, which would mean that either I keep it as a 3 or I bump it up to a 4. The number to the right is above 5, so that tells me I'm going to bump it up to 33.14. For this problem, I got 20.5714. 7 is in the hundredths place. I look to the one next to it. It's a 1, which is less than 5, so that tells me the 7 is going to stay the same. So my final answer will be 20.57. Remember to watch the video as many times as you need to make sure you understand the content. Thanks for watching. For this task, Connor and Aaron are working on their homework together to find the distance between two numbers on a number line. Connor counts the units between the numbers, while Aaron subtracts the least number from the greatest. While both methods can give the correct answer, Connor and Aaron do not always apply them correctly. Your task will be to check their work, identify and correct any mistakes, and find the correct answer. So, to be clear, you need to figure out which, if either of them, is correct and who is incorrect. Then you need to find and correct any errors, any incorrect work. Work on part A and start the video up when you are ready to move on to part B. All right, now that you've finished part A, move on to part B. When you're ready to check your answers for both parts, start the video back up again. All right, so for part A, I checked Connor's work and it looks great. But when I was checking Aaron's work, I noticed that he made a mistake. So he was correct in counting that between 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, there's 3 whole spaces. But when he went to add in the fraction parts, he forgot that the distance between 1 and 1/3 and 2 would be 2/3 units, not 1/3 unit. So where he added 1/3, it should have been 2/3 in his work. So if we're to correct that, if we do 3 plus 2/3 plus 1/4, we will end up with 3 and 11/12, the same answer that Connor got. For part B, I checked over Connor's work and I found a mistake. He should have had a negative sign in front of the 10/3. It should have been subtract a negative 3 1/2, so it should have been subtract a negative 10/3, and so on and so forth. Also, he made a second mistake. On the third step, if this was correct, then our final answer should have been negative because 50 is bigger than 36. And if we have a positive subtracting a bigger number, we have to have a negative number. So there were actually 2 mistakes in Connor's work. Aaron's work was totally correct, and if I was to fix Connor's mistake, I would end up with that same answer of 5 and 11/15. Once again, watch the video as many times as you need to make sure you understand the content. Thanks for watching.